Hi and welcome to this video where I'm going to show you how to publish DITA maps using Adobe FrameMaker 2015. I'm going to talk a bit about topics and maps, attributes, and how the DITA val file comes into play. In this session, I'm going to take a little bit of time to show you how to configure attributes for different outputs, how to create and work with the DITA val file, and I'll do this with some hands-on demos inside FrameMaker 2015, and these are things that you can do yourself. A little bit of quick housekeeping and note-taking. I'm going to go through and present a bunch of different pieces of information in these slides, but not everything is equally weighted. You'll likely be able to use some or discard others. The slide speed also varies. It's here as a reference and to guide me through the conversation. I would suggest that you watch the video once start to end, and then you go back and you watch it again and pause it along the way in order to get as much out of this as you can. I would love to claim that the errors and the typos is done on purpose, but they isn't. They weren't, never, and they ain't. I'll fix them as I can. There may be little things along the way that are incorrect. My Twitter handle @PublishSmarter, my contact information is at the end of the slides, and I do suggest that you track the slide numbers, this being slide number 3, because it makes it a little easier when you need to jump ahead quickly to a specific point of interest. I have a company called Publishing Smarter. I'm the president of the organization and a content strategist involved in publishing technologies. I'm an author, and I'm geek enough for a lot of the things that I'm going to be explaining. I'm also a certified technical trainer in DITA and content management tools and do a lot of work around topic-based writing. Lastly, I'm active in the Society for Technical Communications. I'm a past president and an associate fellow. And I do want to close off the preamble with my standard disclaimer that because of the interest in brevity and keeping to the point, I'll make some blanket statements to keep things simple. It may not be 100% the truth, but I'll stay really close, and this means some purists may complain. I would say that they're wrong in their complaints because I'm putting the presentation together in order to show you ideas and a basic implementation, but they may actually be right if they're starting to dive in a little deeper. I'm scratching the surface to get you started and to show you how to do this yourself from a basic standpoint. Instead of going in and creating a map and all of the content in the video, I'm going to give you an overview of the materials that I have, but I've already created this in advance. I'm using FrameMaker 2015, and you could take the software and go in using the DITA menu, creating new concepts and tasks and references, and build exactly what you're going to see on subsequent slides. If that's something that you're interested in doing, pause the video on each of the slides and create the content. Again, if you're watching the video for the first time though, watch all the way through once and then go back a second time, and that's the ideal time to pause it. That gives you the opportunity to really get to see some of the ideas and then decide how you want to implement them. This is my initial concept, C_DITA maps. I like using the C_ in order to identify it as a concept. The concept has a title, a short description, and then in the con body there's a single paragraph. This should be an easy one for you to create if you need to do so. I also put all of my content, for the sample at least, into one folder. So I create a folder with a name something like Conditional Publishing, and inside it I would save the concept and all of the subsequent task, reference, map information that you see, as well as the DITA val files. It makes it really easy for you to manage the content this way. The first task that I have is how to create a map. It has a title and a short desk, and then into the task body with a collection of step elements inside the steps. The very first step has a menu cascade. This might be one that's a little newer. Inside a menu cascade, I have multiple UI controls. So in FrameMaker 2015, you can go in and you can select from the menu DITA, new DITA file, and then create new map. And those 3 UI control elements are nested inside the menu cascade. They're the only 3 things that are in there, and the symbol between DITA, new DITA file, new map is automatically inserted. The rest of this should be a pretty straightforward document, and again, if you want to create it, pause the video, go ahead and do so. This next task has something interesting if you take a look down near the end of it. Step 4 and Step 5 are both really similar. Step 4 specifically reads, Insert specific topics as required. This would be the step that I want my advanced user to see. It makes the assumption that the advanced user knows how to actually go through and do the action. Step 5 reads click Browse, double click a topic, and then click OK. Really, it's the same information as step 4, but it's written out in a longer format, and this is geared towards my basic user. So later on, when I do conditional publishing, I'm going to set these up so that they apply either to my advanced or to my basic user. The next task in the sample is on how to reorganize a map. This one's a pretty straightforward, basic task. This last task talks about how to publish a map, and again, if you want to go ahead and create it, feel free to do so. My last topic is a reference related to publish output formats. It has a table with information about some supported file format and the general use of that file format. This information is something that later on I'm going to define to be specific to my more advanced users. Each of those 6 discrete topics would also be pulled together into a map that I also put into the same folder, in my case the conditional publishing folder. I combine all of the content into one map with a very basic structure, and I'm intentionally keeping this simple. The map has a title, Work with Maps, it has the concept, DITA maps, and then the tasks and the reference are inserted as a child of that concept. That's it. This exists so that I can demonstrate some of the ideas around conditional publishing, and it makes it really easy if you want to recreate this information yourself. Again, before I move on, I want to restate all of those previous slides are samples that are going to be related to some of the material that follows, and if you do want to try doing this hands-on, you can always go back, pause the video along the way, and recreate the documents. Let's move on though and take a look at some of the topic and the map level attributes that can be applied so that you can publish for specific audiences, products, or platforms. When it comes to conditional publishing, you'll need to use attributes, and these can be used with most elements. For example, I could have a paragraph with an audience of A for an advanced user, and another paragraph with an audience set to B for a basic user. There's all kinds of different attributes, but a couple of common ones include the product, which would be something like the name of the product to which the element applies, the platform, probably related to the operating system and the hardware, or the audience, which would be who is expected to be reading this type of information. Here I have 2 different steps. One of them is for audience A, and another is for audience B. So if you take a look inside the structure view on the right-hand side, you'll see 2 unique step elements, and each of them has a specific audience to which it applies. In the document view, you'll see step 4 and step 5, each with unique information inserted into them. These types of conditions are not just used internally inside a topic. Many of the exact same attributes can also be used in maps. This means that you can therefore include or exclude entire topics. It's the same set of general ideas, so let's go take a look. My audience A is going to be able to see the technical reference. I have a reference on specific publish outputs. It's set up with an attribute of audience defined to have a value of A. In this demo, there's also something for a basic user, where I'm going to teach them how to create a map. My advanced users already know how to do this, so the task on create a map has the attribute name of audience defined to B. Over the next few minutes, I'll do a demo where I actually open some of the topics and I add and configure a couple of the attributes and also update the map so that you get a chance to see exactly how you do this inside Adobe FrameMaker 2015. Inside the task Add Topics to a Map, I have a collection of steps. If I click on step 4, we can take a look at exactly what the attribute named audience has defined for a value. I know that this text should be for my more advanced audience because it just says insert specific topics as required with the assumption that they know exactly how to do this. Therefore, I'm going to change the value. I click, type the letter A, and press Enter. What's currently displayed as step 5, which reads click Browse, double-click a topic, and then click OK, is a little more detailed, and this is going to be for my basic or my audience B. And just like last time, I click in the value, and I type in B and press Enter. When that's done, I'll save and close the file. For attributes in maps, I can right mouse click inside the map, and then select to Edit Attributes. In the Attributes dialog on the right, you can see that I'm currently in the element Map, and that the audience is set to no specific value. However, when I click on the reference in relation to publish outputs, you can see that on the right-hand side in the attributes dialog, it updates to show me that the element I'm in is a topic ref and that this is defined for a specific audience. In this case, audience A, or my advanced users. Just like I did with the independent step inside of the task, I can go to the attributes dialog and change the audience. I type in B and press enter because this entire task is going to be specific just to my audience B, my basic user. Before I publish, I'll save my map. Using the idea of a DITA val file, I can combine the map work that I did as well as the attributes and publish exactly what it is that I need. So I can publish just my version A for advanced or just my version B for a basic user. Let's go explore the DITA val file and how to configure it. The DITA val file has code inside it that will identify what to include or exclude and how, if at all, to format some of the included content. I'll show you a complex one, but we'll build one that's relatively basic to get started. If you want, you can pause the video and take a look at this detailed example. However, for our purposes, there's only a couple of specific lines that are really going to carry a lot of value. I'll explore these a little more in some of the subsequent slides. For what we need to do, I want to simplify. Right now I've been writing some documentation that tells you how maps work. I've been writing it for multiple audiences. I have my advanced and my basic, and there's a couple of elements or even entire topics that are specific to one or the other. I need to therefore create some content and apply the attribute audience A or the attribute audience B, which I've gone in and done, and I need to create conditional files, the val file, for each of these. If I want just audience A, the val file would contain the literal information that you see in front of you. I've indented the prop action so that it's a little easier to have that stand out. But there's a line that says this is XML, then there's the val beginning and the val closing with the slash, and there's two sets of properties that are going to kick into play. One of them is an action to include anything that has an attribute of audience with a value of A. The second is to exclude anything where the audience is B. And if I wanted one that was just B, it may appear as seen here with a prop action to include audience B and exclude audience A. Not all tools always need you to put in the include and the exclude statements. I like having them in there so that it's really, really clear to me as a human being when I read this exactly what's going to be included or what's going to be excluded. Makes it a little easier, I think, to sit down and do analysis and to plan your content. For this next part of the demo, I'm going to create a DITA val file, but they're really specific, so use caution when you do this. I like to create a basic val using a text editor. Sometimes I'll open an existing DITA val and I'll use file save as and edit the content. I'll show you a bit of a tip to make this easier. Often, if you open a file in something like Notepad and you save it, the TXT extension is automatically added. I'll show you a workaround. You'll see that right now on the left I have a folder open and it has an audience A DITA val file. I'm just going to drag that over into Notepad and see what happens when I open it. There's my default val file, pretty much exactly as I showed you in the earlier slide, except that the prop element is not indented. Again, I only indented so that it was very clear exactly which attributes and which elements come together in order to allow you to publish for an audience of A and include it or an audience of B and exclude it. But let's go in and tweak this so that we have something that is not going to be an audience A document, but an audience B document. I'll go in, I'll edit the initial A to a B, and after I change the property so that the attribute audience has a value of B for include, I need to change the next line. I make a quick edit, and now the second line has the property so that the attribute audience, if set to A, will be excluded. Again, if you type it, be really cautious that you get all of the characters correct. This is one of the reasons that I take my initial attributes and values and actions and I clone them and I tweak them rather than trying to write it all from scratch. Then I'll go in and I'll use File, Save As. This lets me rename it rather than having to create it from scratch every single time. However, because I'm working inside Notepad and I have a file name that ends in DITA there's a couple things I have to do. I want to rename it from Audience A to Audience B. However, I'm also going to enclose it inside a set of opening quotation marks and a pair of closing quotes. By putting quotation marks around the file name, I ensure that the name is going to be exactly what I type in, rather than having Notepad add .txt at the end of it. I also edit the A and type in B. Then, when I have the proper file name, including the quotation marks at the beginning and end, I click Save. In the folder, you can see that an Audience B DITA file has now been created, and it was done by cloning the existing Audience A, tweaking it, and doing a Save As. Creating the DITA files is something that generally only has to be done once. In order to publish the demo material, remember I'm writing for multiple audiences. I have Advanced, which is A, and Basic, which is B. We also have topics that are set up with a phrase for just A and a second for just B, and a map with an entire topic that is just A or just B. And now we have the conditional files. We have the val documents for each. So I'm going to go in Frame 2015 and use the map to File, Save DITA As. When I go in and I take my DITA map and I save it, I'm not going to publish just one topic at a time. I'm not creating content for each audience file by file for Audience A and Audience B. I'm going to publish the map so that I have content for more than one audience, and I'm using those val files. There's two primary options here. One is save as a composite, which creates just one big FrameMaker file, which is what I'll use here. The other is save as book. There are multiple files that are usually created when you create a book, and they're representative of the hierarchy inside the map. They can be configured using an INI file, but it's more initial work to set up. It's a very powerful publishing tool. The basics are easy. It's quick for us to do a demo here in the video, but because there's so much power behind the publishing, FrameMaker is using a visual interface in order to configure a set of templates. There's all kinds of things that can be done so that you have different templates for authors, different templates for publish. You can include automatically generated covers, tables of contents, lists of figures, index materials. There's all types of work that can be done. So when it does get to doing a far more powerful and far more complex publishing, there's definitely additional work that has to be done in order to set these things up. In this video though, I'll show you the basics. I'm going to go in and save the content as a composite file. In order for this to work, I have to have a map open. I've already gone in, created my val files, and I've already assigned attributes. So the first step at this point to publish for our Advanced, our A audience, is to click File. Then I'm going to choose to save my DITA map as, and then I'll tweak some of the options that are here inside the dialog. For starters, I'll change the default file name to something that's a little more representative of exactly what it is that I'm creating. This map is for my audience A, so therefore I give it the name M for map, work with maps for A. You may have noticed that the prompt for DITA file is currently grayed out. That's because the XML file can't be saved using the DITA But if I change the save as type and I choose composite document, then the prompt for DITA file becomes an option that I can select. Once this is configured, I click Save. Near the top of the dialog, you can see that I have Audience A DITA and Audience B DITA Since this content is for my advanced user, I'll click on Audience A DITA Then I click Choose, and I wait a moment. FrameMaker generates content specific to my Audience A. Take a look at what the very first task inside my structure view contains. This has the title, Add Topics to a Map. And when we take a look and compare that with what's inside the DITA map, you'll see that it's actually the second task. Remember, earlier I went in and I took the task that is above this, the task on how to create a map, and I defined it as being specific to my B, my basic type of an audience. That's the reason that it's not included in output. Additionally, I have step 4. The step reads, Insert specific topics as required. Again, it doesn't have the detailed explanation that I have for my B audience, my basic. Instead, it has the shorter information for my A or my advanced user. So this content is specifically output and generated for my advanced or audience A type of a reader. Closing the content for my advanced audience, I'm going to go in and publish for our basic, our B audience. And again, I click File to get started. Again, I'm going to go in and choose Save Data Map As. I'll go and change the file name, and then I'll also save as a different type. Again, I'll make sure that the type is a composite document. I will tell FrameMaker to prompt me for a DITA file, and then click Save. Again, the top of the dialog has Audience A and Audience B, and this time we'll do an Audience B selection. This time, in my structure view, I can see that the very first task is on how to create a map. Again, that was created for my basic, my Audience B type of a reader. In my structure view, I have 4 task elements, but I have no reference. Take a look over in the map though. The reference on Publish Outputs was created for my advanced, my Audience A, and therefore it's not included with the output for my B environment. Lastly, I'll scroll down so that we can look at the task on how to add topics to a map and explore the very last step. Here you'll see that step 4 reads Click Browse, double-click a topic, and then click OK, which is exactly what I need to show to my Audience B, my basic users who require a little more information, a little more hand-holding to guide them through the procedure. So let me wrap it up and give you some contact information. In the video, I showed you how to configure attributes for specific outputs. I used an audience of A for my advanced and B for my basic user. Then I went in and I showed you how to work with DITA files and how to create and modify those. I also put together some hands-on demonstrations inside FrameMaker, which you can actually go back and do yourself. I would suggest that you rewatch the video, work your way through it, pause along the way and jot down notes about specific areas of interest, and try to create some of the content, or use your own content, set up things like your audience for A and B for your advanced and your basic user, and try it out for yourself. I actually get to do this type of work quite a lot. In our business, we actually help clients create content, manage it, deliver it to the right audiences, socialize the message, listen to what it is that the audience has to say, and then improve the content and go in and create better materials, continue to manage and deliver and socialize and listen and improve. We really help clients write less and write better. If you do have additional questions, or you just want to follow up in order to get some demonstrations or a little bit of a feel for how this would work with your own content, contact information is provided here on the slide, and you can generally get in touch with me at almost any time of the day. Thanks a lot. Hopefully this video was helpful. I look forward to talking to you in the future.